Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Temple City City Council regular meeting of February 18th, 2025 to order. Madam Clerk, if we could have roll call, please.
Councilmember Chen?
Here.
Councilmember Mann?
Here.
Councilmember Sternquist?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Yu?
Here.
Mayor Chavez?
Here. Okay, everyone's here. We'll begin with our invocation. Pleased to welcome back Pastor Kelty from the Community of Christ Church, who will be providing tonight's invocation. So if you'll please stand. After the invocation, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our divine Creator, we thank you for this world that you have created. We thank you for this most beautiful day and the light that provides lights for all of us. We thank you that we're able to live in this community and enjoy the benefits of all that it has to offer us. We would come into your presence in prayer this evening to ask your blessing upon all that are here gathered, to do the city's business, to build a better community for now and into the future. May we share in what we have and share it with others to what to come to pass, both this day and for the days to come. We remember especially the City Council and their staff, that they may have your wisdom to be with them, that as they seek to do those things that make this an even better community. We know not what the future may bring, but ask your Creator, that in all we do this evening and in the future, be not just for this generation, but for those generations to come, who will be coming after us, will make this an even better city than it already is. That when we look into the future, that they too may, with hope, anticipation, and eagerness, and a positive outlook because of what has been done here this evening and in our future, may we look to the future with brightness. We would ask our Creator and our Maker. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Kelty. Please face the flag. Place your right hand over the heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, please be seated. So I recently had the privilege of marrying my son and his new wife, and after they processed in, I forgot one thing, and that is to tell people to sit down, and they kept standing.
The whole time.
So my wife Jane said, so I remembered, oh, you can now sit. I figured they would know that, but they didn't. Anyway, came to my mind right now when we all sat down, so thank you. Okay, we will now move on to ceremonial matters. I don't believe there is any, correct? On my notes I have presentation, but there isn't a presentation tonight. So we will now move on to item 6, public comments. I do have a couple of speaker request forms. Why don't we start with Mr. Tom Pugel. Is it Pugel? It's Pugel. Mr. Pugel, come on up to the podium, please.
Okay, mine, is this working? Pugel, and I live at 6355 Sultana Avenue, and I've lived in the area here for about 40 years. And in the past about 9 months, when I was doing my only 2 days a week cutting water, Tuesday and Thursday on my limited lawn, I noticed that between the hours of about 5 or 4:30, 5 o'clock to about 6:30, a pattern developing, and that is that people would use Sultana Avenue, cutting from Emperor or at the base of Sultana Avenue on Longdon Avenue, use Sultana as go fast, avoid the traffic lights at Rosemead. And during this period of time, I want to say I spent in my earlier years 12 years as a state trooper in Washington, and I know the difference between 25 miles an hour, which is the posted speed limit for Sultana, and 50 or 70. And when the cars make the corner at Longdon to go north on Sultana, they'll floor it. And they'll be doing 60, 70 miles an hour up Sultana till they get to Emperor to cut over and go up Rosemead. And then when they come south, they do the same thing, and they punch it, and they're hard on the brakes before they hit Longdon at the bottom. And the thing that concerns me the most is as the area has changed in the past years, there's many older, elderly Asian neighbors I have that go for walks in the street, and unfortunately, they like to walk with their back to traffic wearing dark clothing, which is not good anyway. But when you got somebody coming up the street doing high rate of speed, it's going to be tragic sometime. And I've tried to speak to different sheriffs when I'd see them, like, hey, could you guys come over here and work some radar or something, even talk to the motor officers. And then at different times they had a thing at the city park, and I spoke to a captain there, and I specifically laid it out for him, and they had 2 motor officers there, which those guys their whole purpose in life is to write tickets. And they said, yeah, we'll do something, but nothing was ever done. And tonight, maybe because of the holiday just recently, there wasn't that much traffic on the street, but between those hours in the evening, they use that as the, go as fast as you can to beat the lights.
So are you saying it's in the morning hours between 4 and 6 a.m. and then
No,
in the evening as well?
In the morning hours, around 7 or 8 o'clock, you'll get them
okay.
really punching it up the street in the morning hours, because
Okay.
you want to avoid the traffic congestion by the lights at Rosemead and Longdon. And then in the evening, though, they go both ways, up and down Sultana in the evening hours. It's usually, I would say, in the areas of 5 to 6, 6:30. If they had a motor officer just stationed mid-block, and it's a 3-block long thing, because you come up from Longdon and there's Woolley, and you come up further and there's another block, so it's about 3 blocks long street. And I thought to myself, I've wished 100 times, God, I wish I could be a trooper back being here. I'd just sit in the middle here and turn my radar gun either way. And I thought I'd write about 5 to 10 tickets a night for probably double the speed limit. But the main thing is that we make it where somebody says, well, maybe you can get the city council to put it in speed bumps. And I go, I don't think that's going to happen. So what I'm trying to call to the attention is maybe they can start working some enforcement there, because a lot of times the people I see speeding are the same ones, because they know this is their, shortcut. And so I just want to call out to the city council, and because I've tried speaking to the sheriffs and nothing's happened, maybe the city council can speak to the sheriffs, and maybe they can, just every once a week go over there and write 10 tickets for speeders, and I'm sure they'd, and we're not talking about, 5 over or something like that. As I came down here, all the city streets are 25, but I'm talking about really going fast. In fact, sometimes I thought, holy moly, So anyway.
Okay, well, we certainly appreciate you bringing that to our attention. We do have done traffic mitigation work in the past throughout the city. This is another area where obviously we need to take notice of, and I know our city manager has taken some notes, and we will certainly work with the sheriffs and see what we can do.
Yeah, they won't be disappointed in the kind of tickets they get.
Well, people sometimes think that we like to give tickets to raise money. We don't do that, of course.
No.
But certainly you brought up a very valid safety issue and something we need to take into consideration, so.
Yeah, there was another thing on my sheet about noise issue at the plaza, but I've talked to Brian Cook, your city manager, about that, and he said that's being dealt with, so I'll do that.
Okay, yeah, we'll take care of that
later
as well,
on.
I know that.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, sir. Appreciate
Okay.
you coming to the meeting.
Okay, thank you
All right,
very
have a
much.
good evening. And by the way, just so you know, we do meet with our sheriffs every last Wednesday of each month, and to discuss issues like this, and you're welcome to come. It's at 7 o'clock in the morning, right next door at the community room next to City Hall. We provide breakfast, and I know you're probably an early riser like me, so. Not anymore? Okay, since you
anymore.
retired, okay.
I retired.
But if you decide you want to get up in the morning and come to a meeting and express your concerns about that and anything else, feel free to do so.
Would I need to come to that one, or are you gonna?
No, I'm just bringing that to your attention.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need to do anything further, we'll take care of
I
it.
spoke to the captain once, so.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sternquist, you wanted to say something?
Yes, just today, maybe Brian, you can expand on that, but I must have seen 7 or 8 notices on Nextdoor from today. Motor Cop was out visible, and then when my husband came back from someplace this morning, he said, oh, they're giving tickets today. But it was all over Facebook. I saw the deputy giving a ticket to 2 Teslas, one on each side of the road. So was there something special today with the Motor Cop?
I'm happy to go into it, but very briefly. We did have our traffic enforcement. They let us know this morning that they would be out. They were out the mid part of the day through the afternoon. We did put out a Nixle alert, just noting, not loading the locations, but noting that the extra enforcement would be out today.
And I have to say that the majority of people were very much had your viewpoint, like, please stop speeding. And so there was just a lot of affirmative of what we're speaking to, and I think it's definitely citywide.
Well, if they go during those hours, that evening hours where people are going home or going to work, in the earlier morning hours, but the evening is, that's when the worst.
Can you come closer to the microphone so we can hear what you're saying?
What I'm saying is if they go in the early morning hours, they'll get a few. But if they go in the evening hours that I mentioned, like 4:30 to 6:30 or 6, they're going to get some good ones.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We'll look into it. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, I do have a second speaker request form. Mr. Kirk Kalaji. I'm probably butchered your name there, but come on up, Kirk.
Hello, City Council members.
Good evening.
So I like to play tennis a lot at night. There's a group of us that play tennis. And I
Try not to hold that in front of the microphone. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, sure,
Pick it up a
sure.
little bit. Yeah, there you go.
And so unfortunately, during the fires, the tennis courts have been out since the 7th. But I do understand that both Mr. Cook and Mr. Matsumoto are both diligently working on this. I was just very concerned. Our group that we meet there every night, you know, there's maybe like 3 or 4 core members, and then there's about 30 other people that just kind of, some people they come once a month or whatnot. It's a really vibrant and wonderful community that is there in the park. And one of them asked me to show his feelings in his expression here. That's what he felt on our group chat. So he said I could show that with you guys. But this is his disappointment at not being able to play tennis there. But in any event, you know, I believe that, like, courts 1 and 2, which are still operational, you know, I don't know, sounds like the machinery is in place to get the bids and whatnot to get this thing up and running, but, you know, you could probably put, if you look at the length of this court between 3 and 4, you know, you could probably use the same contractor that you use to do the temporary fencing and just block off this area, because it's only court 3 that's not available. And I know that Coach Lito, he teaches tennis class on court 3 every night until 8 o'clock. So I don't know what he's been able to do for his livelihood, you know, for the last month that the courts have been down, because he has to have the lights in order to do the tennis until 8 o'clock. I know his wife runs the Karen's Tennis business on Temple City Boulevard, just a little bit north of, just right there at the center of town. But in any event, I'm sorry to waste you guys' time here on this, but
It's not a waste of
just
time
been-
at all.
I had, unfortunately, I listened to the meeting on of the commission, the Parks Commission on the 15th, and I was just concerned that, you know, because about a decade ago, a fence broke, and it took like an exceptionally long time to get rebuilt. And then the group was not able to meet for many years as a result. I mean, not many years, but many, many months as a result of that. So I was just trying to speak on their behalf today. And like I said, Mr. Masumoto is on top of this, and Mr. Cook is on top of this, and I thank you guys all. And one of these days, also, just I have to throw in a plug, we'd love to have lights on courts 1 to 4 as well, one of these days. But I know that that's a hot button issue. But if you can fix this fence, we'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. You're correct. This has been brought to our attention. In fact, we discussed a little bit about it last meeting, and we know that staff is currently working on getting that fence back up to speed, and we're trying to get it done as quickly as possible. So hopefully it won't drag on. And
I'll let everyone know that.
yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm amazed that there's still tennis players out there in the world. You haven't switched over to pickleball yet, huh? Okay, I just.
We're future pickleball players.
Okay. Okay.
Yay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and we will ASAP. Believe me, I know Mr. Matsumoto is very good at getting things done, so we will look forward to seeing you back out there on those courts soon. Okay. Anybody else like to speak at this time during our public comments? If not, I will close public comments, and we will now move on to item 7, the consent calendar. All consent calendars may be approved in a single motion as recommended unless removed for further discussion. I would like to remove item, I believe it's item I, regarding the enforcement of the overnight parking permit restrictions. And does anybody else have any items they'd like to pull at this time? Okay, if not, why don't we take a motion now for the items other than item I?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve consent items A through J except I.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, if we could have roll call, please.
Councilmember Chen,
Yes.
Councilmember Mann,
Yes.
Councilmember Sternquist,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem You,
Yes.
Mayor Chavez.
Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, so we removed item I, recommence enforcement of overnight permit parking restrictions. As many of you may know, we relaxed the overnight parking restrictions in response to the windstorm and the fires, and the fact that we had people from out of town staying with people here in Temple City. And so those were, overnight parking was not enforced, and now as many cities are bringing those enforcement or those restrictions back. And I just want our city manager, Brian Cook, to speak a little bit about how that's going to be done and what you can still do if you need additional parking because of the fire-impacted areas or people who are staying with them. Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Mayor Chavez. As you know, the city did declare an emergency because of the wind and storm event. I activated the EOC on the 8th, and right thereafter we suspended overnight parking enforcement, primarily initially because of the downed tree limbs and everything else that was in the public right of way. We had over 200, I think now over 250 requests for service during the beginning of that event. So we wanted to make sure from a safety standpoint, if people had, and there were displaced cars, there were other things as well. So that's the action we took later. Obviously, as the tragedy in the Eaton Canyon fire unfolded, we found out that many individuals were actually housing evacuees. And so we suspended, and the council then affirmed that action by declaring that emergency several days later. As we've done before, just like we did with COVID when we suspended overnight parking as well, we want to give the public plenty of notice that we are reinstituting overnight parking, so that's why we're giving this month warning. So that will be one mechanism.
Now, can I just interrupt you briefly? Will there be any other notices other than tonight that will be posted either on social media, or how are we going to go about letting people know that you've got till March 18th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a good point. So we will do social media next door. Also, too, what we'll do as we get closer to the enforcement dates, usually we will put flyers on people's cars, reminding them as we did during COVID as well. So for those who may not be following our social media or any of our other communication outlets, we'll be letting people know just by flyers on the car.
And certainly we can make mention of it at future meetings as well as the closer we get.
Most certainly, sir.
Yeah.
And so we are getting feedback. We don't have an exact number. So I couldn't tell you if it's 50, 25, I don't know the number. But there are individuals that, from our understanding, that are still housing those who have been impacted as evacuees by the fires and are living with multiple people in households at this point in time.
Interestingly enough, I had a client come in who had their house burned down, living in Altadena. They're now staying with their daughter in Temple City. So I invited them to the parade this weekend, but yeah, that's it. It is still happening. There's no question.
So for those individuals who have been impacted by the fire, we would like, part of this action tonight is to extend to them with a fee waiver, a 6-month permit, so that they have enough time. And then if we get to the 6 months, depending on the individual circumstances, we can come back to the council and possibly extend that. The way they would demonstrate that is either through an insurance claim, or we're not going to make it a rigorous process, but we want something to demonstrate that the individual in your household has been impacted by the fire. You know, they don't have to give us the details, just an insurance claim or anything like that. So just so we have some documentary evidence that the fact that they have been impacted. And what we would do is this action tonight, if approved by the city council, would then extend a permit for a no-fee permit for 6 months.
Now, is that 6 months from January 1st or 6 months from now?
It would be 6 months from, thank you for the clarification, Mayor. That would be 6 months from March 18th.
Okay, all right.
So the day that we start enforcement again.
Right, so sometime in September?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's certainly a good length of time. And I'm
Oh,
assuming...
excuse me, correction, my apologies, until August 18th.
Oh, okay, so August 15th. Okay, so I'm assuming they'll have to come into City Hall and do that? Can't do it online, obviously?
We would prefer, we don't want to make this burdensome and an inconvenience, but because we need some demonstration that they are, I mean, if they can communicate to us by email as well with that information, that's fine as well.
Okay.
We're not trying to make like a new form or anything like
Right.
that. We're trying to, just to accommodate as understanding the tragedy that our neighboring jurisdiction in the county and our friends in Altadena have gone through, just to help them out.
Good, all right. Any other questions from council?
No, Mayor,
Yes,
just
go
make a
ahead.
quick comment. I think we should remind the folks that no parking for street sweeping will still be enforced, whether they have a permit or not.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, all of our other enforcement mechanisms, including red curb and street sweeping as well. Our street sweeping is there because of the fact that we have to comply with stormwater regulations, and that's one of our stormwater mitigation measures, is the amount of street sweeping that we do citywide.
And one last clarification, if you don't mind. I know that when we delayed the parking enforcement, it also applied to motor homes and larger vehicles. Is that still going to apply now, or how are we going to handle that?
We would take a case, we would look at that. This just applies to the extra permits. If we do see some of those come in, to the best of my knowledge right now, there's no one else requesting anything from an RV standpoint that's living outside. So, but if that does come up back, we can take some administrative action immediately, but then we may come back to the council with some clarification to this action or an addendum to this action as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes?
One quick comment, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a good time to bring it up since in previous public safety summary meetings, we've talked about, I think there are a number of public comments from the audience that would come and talk about not having front plates or expired registration. I think just for the purpose of letting our public safety officers, our parking enforcement officers know very clearly that I think, that all codes and any violation could be something that they attack or they take enforcement action. Because I believe I heard at some point that they do not use one of these as to take enforcement action. But rather, unless there's a parking violation that occur first. I think it's probably best to just minimize any confusion that, reminding the public between this and next month that if you have registration that are not taken care of, front plates that are not taken care of, that we are taking a aggressive approach starting a month from now, but they can be reminded to get all their registration and front plates, as well as other violations taken care of, because if they're parked in a public roadway, all those vehicle codes are applying, and I think it's best that we remove any sort of restrictions or any type of enforcement directive to our parking enforcement officers, since they have they have a job to do.
Okay, thank you. You must be in law enforcement. Okay, unless there are any other questions, I'll entertain a motion as to item I on the consent calendar.
Motion for consent calendar item I.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, if we could have roll call, please.
Councilmember Chen,
Yes.
Councilmember Mann,
Yes.
Councilmember Sternquist.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yu,
Yes.
Mayor Chavez.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you, City Manager Cook.
Thank you,
And
sir.
now we will move on to item number 8, public hearing. There is none. Unfinished business, none. Item number 10, new business. Item A, fiscal year 2024-2025, mid-year financial review, treasurer's report, revenue, expenditure, and capital project summary reports, and budget amendments. And I believe we'll start with City Manager Cook and then go to our Administrative Services Director. Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Chavez and members of the council. Before Mr. Kung was hired, I delivered the fourth quarter financial report, dusted off the cobwebs of many years ago being a finance director. Mr. Kung will do much better than I did several months ago. As I mentioned in the fourth quarter update before, because of the manner, and Mr. Kung has a great graph on how that worked out, how we utilized our ARPA funds. Our fund balance is a little larger and essentially not where it's going to be a year from now or 18 months from now. What we've done for the members of the public is that the council used our ARPA funds, the funds that were part of the stimulus out of COVID, a little over $8 million, and we've utilized that from a transfer standpoint, actually paying for our law enforcement services so that we had an unrestricted amount of funds to do capital projects that were in concert with the COVID guidelines and the use of those funds. But because of what the staff was doing and being very efficient with several of our projects, we were actually coming in under budget. One of them you just passed the other day, which was the playground right out front at Temple City Park. We were about $100,000 under budget. We wanted to make sure that we were utilizing all those funds. So with that being said, our financial picture from a fund balance standpoint is great, but again, when you see that number that's there, that's the number that we're not going to end up with at the end of the day, because we're using those ARPA funds that were transferred from law enforcement to going into the city's general fund balance, and are using that for our capital projects. Overall, the city is in a stable financial condition. We are starting to see a level of growth in sales tax that is starting to moderate a bit. We are starting to see a level of growth in property tax that is starting to moderate, but it has not hit a downward slope. As all of you know, and I know Councilmember Chen is new, but has observed and been part of this community for a long time, our revenue growth tends to go up slowly, and when a recession hits or downturn hits, it goes down slowly. That's why we are very conservative with our projections, and you as the city council have been very conservative in how you approach what programs, the types of programs, and the rate of growth with those programs that we are using, either general fund dollars or special funds. So with that being said, I will, Mayor, turn it over to Mr. Kung, our not so new, so more Admin Services Director and City Treasurer.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Kung, it's all yours.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you, Mr. Cook. I think you did a great job, and I'm pretty much done with my report, I think. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's move on to the mid-year financial review of the 24-25 budget. Here, I'm going to give you a little overview in the sections that we're going to go over. The analysis, we're going to take a look at the budget amendments that I am proposing, and then we'll go over the revenues and expenditures for the general fund, and kind of discuss how much we've received as of December 31st, 2024. And then we'll talk about the fund balance, which Mr. Cook kind of mentioned to you, a little bit more in depth to kind of just see the numbers and how it works out. And then finally, just a conclusion of what we went over, and then an outlook of our next budget, the 25-26 budget, that's coming very soon as we speak. So as far as with the analysis, the general fund revenues are projected to be a little bit higher in the first 6 months, and that's primarily due to a one-time collection of a building permit fee for the project on Los Tunas there. We received roughly about $350,000 for that, and as I mentioned, that's just a one-time fee that we're receiving for that. Interest income also is a bit higher this year. I'm sorry, I'll speak closer to the mic. Interest income's a little bit higher this year, just due to the interest rates currently. It's about the same as a little bit last year as far as the interest rates are concerned. So we're doing well in that, and we're making a little bit of an adjustment to that as well.
One point on that, if I may, if you remember from 2 years ago when the interest rates spiked so high, some of our longer-term issuances that were at a lower rate were discounted, and we saw a slight loss in, or a paper loss in that revenue. We hold on to our investments till maturity. So that means when interest rates start to level out and the longer that we go out, we actually start to realize that interest income. Similar to the fact if you bought a 12-month CD and then reinvested that 12-month CD later, you're gonna get a little bit less interest for that first 12 months, but that next 12 months, you're going to do a little bit better. That's essentially what we're seeing in our portfolio going forward. That's why you see, and that will not last over time. So, and when we budget for interest income related to our investments, we look at them at a point in time. So it's calculated during the end of the fiscal year, so we understand that. So the expenditures the interest income that we're seeing is slightly over estimates as well. But when we come back to you for the 25-26 budget, those interest income estimates are going to be a bit more moderated than they are in terms of what we're realizing right now.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
You know, while it sounds great to have higher revenue because of permit fees, but we actually don't make money on permits, so pretty much that money will be expended eventually.
That's a great point, Mayor Pro Tem Yu. So we have a fee analysis that looks at the actual cost of providing the service with a percentage, kind of, for lack of a better term, an overhead cost that comes with that as well. So this is not a profit-making venture for us. It's not in the same way you can look at general taxes being sales tax, property tax, that's kind of free and clear to be paid for. This is actually delivered through, as you're saying, Mayor Pro Tem, through an actual expenditure of resources by the city to provide that service. Sorry, Alex.
No problem.
Who's giving this report, you or just kidding?
I think we're doing a great job tag teaming this right now. As far as non-general fund overview, those are what I would call special funds. And those are revenues and expenditures from Metro or RMRA, street funds. And those are also on target. I would say that right now special fund revenues are about $3.4 million. The reason it may sound a little bit low is that we're really tapping into these ARPA funds. So as, that was actually considered a fund balance. We received those monies couple of years ago, and so what we're really doing is dipping into those fund balances for ARPA to pay the sheriff contract. And in addition, we're also we've received roughly about 11 million in special funds, and those special funds are really just you know, the Metro funds and also RMRA funds, gas tax funds, and so forth, street lighting. Those are all your special funds. Going through now, we're going to talk about the budget amendments and something that I previously mentioned. So you're going to see that I'm requesting a $352,600 net increase for general fund revenues, and that consists of building permit fees, as I mentioned, interest income. The opposite is court fines. We've budgeted roughly about 400,000 in court fines, and I'm sorry, a little bit higher than that. We budgeted 533, and I would like to bring it down to 433,000. Part of the reason I'd like to decrease it is because it's coming in a little bit lower. But what I have noticed is the trend is that the second half of the fiscal year, we seem to make up more of those revenues in that court fine account. But at this moment, I'd like to decrease it just to be a little bit more conservative. In prior years, we've also seen that the second half of the fiscal year is when most of that revenue comes in. It was about 400,000 in the previous year and about 375 in 22, fiscal year 22. So just to be a little bit more conservative, you know, we can make additional adjustments later on in the fiscal year if need be. The other part I wanted to bring your attention to is expenditure net reduction. And so what that means is basically we're reducing some of our expenditure budgets. Some of them are due to timing. For example, the accounting software upgrade that I'm working on right now, it's more than likely it's going to finish in next fiscal year. And so I'm reducing that budget for now, but I'm going to bring it back like a carryover into the next fiscal year. And that also goes with the planning consultant. It's just due to the timing of when we hired the consultant. And so those projects are going to go probably carry over into the next fiscal year. The increase in traffic engineering is something that we've been doing diligently, and there's a lot of studies, is my understanding. And so I'm actually requesting that we increase the traffic engineering account by 75,000. And that's just due to the amount of studies that we have going on this fiscal year. So overall, you'll see that the general fund balance, and this is a rolling balance, is estimated to be 31,234,915. And I'm going to go more into detail in the next few slides. So if you could bear with me, we'll come back to that number shortly. So in regards to revenues, this is what we budgeted at the start of the fiscal year, 19.1 million there. With the increase that I'm requesting, the proposed increase, it will bring that amount up to 19.5 million. Just to give council an idea of where we're at as far as revenues as of December 31st, we were at 6.9 million. Now that may sound a little bit low, and one of the reasons why that may sound low is because we haven't received our in lieu VLF fees, and those in lieu VLF fees is a pretty big dollar amount. It's about 3.2 million. We actually got that in January. So the numbers that you're looking at right now aren't including that 3.2 million. But if you add the 3.2 million and the 6.9 as of 12/31, we're a little over $10 million, and 10 million is basically half of the 19.5 that we've budgeted. So we're on track. We're doing well. I wanted to kind of dive into our big four sources of revenue here, and as Mr. Cook mentioned before, property tax, sales tax, building permit fees, and in lieu VLF fees. Those are our big four revenue sources, and that makes up about 74% of our revenue, general fund revenue stream. And so as you can see, the first bar, the blue bar there, is what we budgeted for the fiscal year. And then I provided you in orange the actuals that we received in the prior year. And then the actuals we received up to 12/31/24 for this fiscal year. And we're doing pretty well. And as I previously mentioned, that we are doing a $350,000 increase for the building permit fee. And as you can see, we've got a little over $1 million there as of 12/31. The in lieu VLF fee there, as I mentioned, we didn't get that until January. And I wanted to just give you an idea of how much we've received so far in that. So that's not included in the revenue projections, the actuals that I provided earlier. So like moving on to expenditures, we've originally started the budget with one-time expenditures of $16.3 million. This year, we've, as of 12/31, we've expended 6.3, and that may sound really low, and the reason why that is really low is because we are using our ARPA funds to pay our sheriff contract currently. And so those payments, as far as when it hits the general fund, will be really much more in the second part of the fiscal year from January through June. So just to give you an idea, general government, it's about $2.5 million that we've spent. Public safety is only $433,000, and that's because, as I mentioned, the ARPA funds that we've spent so far for public safety. And then community development, we spent $1.2 million, or 1.3, I should say, million. Community services, which includes parks and rec, we spent about $1.56 million, and public works is about $570,000. So everything's, yes.
What things would be like under general government?
So general government would include administrative services, my department, Brian's departments, city management, and so forth, like that. The general services that we provide to support all the other departments, basically, city clerk, HR, stuff like that. Is there any other questions?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, so this is the fund balance. This is where things will look a little bit interesting. So this is a summary of the current budget revenues and the requests I'm making in the mid-year revision column there. So overall, it's going to be a $454,500 net change to revenues, increasing revenues and decreasing expenses by $101,000. And as you can see, then the estimates is that for our operating surplus, it would go to $3.9 million. Now, if you look below that line, we have one-time expenditures that were originally budgeted for this fiscal year. But then we also that hit this fiscal year is the one-time property acquisition, which is $820,000, which wasn't budgeted just because of the timing of when the budget passed and when the transaction actually occurred in July of 2024. And then the capital improvement projects here, this is City Hall, the roof work that we've been doing, and just the and the other component is the Live Oak Park. And so these are pretty much the carryover costs from the previous fiscal year. We weren't able to do as much in 23-24, and so much of this budgeted amount is going to probably be expended in this fiscal year. So that's why you're going to see there for the 24-25, just in that fiscal year, you're going to see that we have a deficit. And that deficit is really much more because we're using our fund balances, as we previously mentioned, savings that we've had, because we've been using our ARPA funds first, right? It's like Uncle Sam has given us money up front, told us that we need to spend that money first, and so we're spending that money first, which is the ARPA funds. And so the general fund has actually been saving a little bit of money because we haven't been expending it. But now, in this fiscal year, we're expending everything, right? And so that's why it's going to show that we have a negative or a deficit for this fiscal year. However, if you go further down, you'll see that our fund balance for 23-24 is about $36 million. And that was as of June 30th of 2024. If you subtract out then what we anticipate is the deficit of the 4.7, it reduces our fund balance to 31.2 million. Now, to keep this in perspective, in fiscal year 22-23, our fund balance was 26.3 million. So if you look at 26.3 million and then you look at the 31.2 million, the difference is 4.8 million, basically, that we've increased our fund balance for that period of time. It was a little wonky because of the ARPA funds, and so it kind of, we didn't spend all that money in 23-24, and so our fund balance shot up dramatically. But because we're spending all that money in this fiscal year, you're going to see that, you know, overall for 24-25, it's going to look like we have a deficit. But the big picture wise, it's still going up. It's projected to be 31.2 million as of June 30th, 2025.
So this is all very good news at the end of the day. So as Alex has put in this, and this is complicated because of how we're dealing with ARPA, but essentially what you have done, and credit to the council for their conservative approach, we've essentially taken the ARPA funding that's one time, been able to fund all of these projects. If you take out the ARPA funding, exclude it out, and you look at just our operating revenues and our expenditures going forward, we are still growing fund balance. So not only, so you did not, as of today, you will not have been dipping into the, think of the days before ARPA, you're not dipping into that funding yet. You could in the future, it's your choice as the council, but essentially we've been able to capture all of the ARPA funding, transfer it in or expend it, and utilize it for all those projects without having to dip into the growth on a regular basis with our revenue growth and our expenditures going forward.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I've two simple questions. First one is, has all the ARPA funding been expended?
So you've jumping to the next slide. So I'll show you that right now.
Okay.
So we've almost used them all up. We've have about $500,000 as of 12/31. So it probably has been used up in January.
Right.
And so we're good on that.
So second part of the question is that you pointed out to capital improvement programs and that really draw down our fund balance, right? But do we have future capital improvement project that's going to come online in the next couple of years?
That's a great question. So on the general fund side, we're actually going to discuss a potential project tonight. But as we always have, if it'd be Primrose Park or other parks, we always look to other funding sources first to see what we can draw down off of it, be it state grants or others, as we've done with Primrose Park. But the position the council's in right now, you do have a healthy fund balance that gives you the ability to do that, so if you so choose. But I know the direction you've always given me is to look for other sources. So to answer your question directly, Mayor Pro Tem, no, there is no planned drawdown of that potentially up to 31 million. It could go down a bit more after we get through the rest of the existing capital projects. But that's available. It's available for the council's use.
Okay, thank you.
Is there, with all that's going on in federal government these days, is there any chance of us losing some of these funds?
It's a great question, Mayor, and I think,
guess there's always a chance, but
so if you look at the chart that Mr. Chung just put up right now, I think this pretty much clearly states that we have spent that money.
yeah, that's a good thing because we don't want.
We have spent that money, and we have utilized it at exactly what the federal regulations were to use that money for. So if there was a clawback of this funding, I think it would be an extraordinary act to claw back this funding, especially after we've expended it. And as Mr. Kung says, well, probably the last sheriff's bill that came in close to clearing out that $460,000. Is there always a risk? I can't tell you with 100% certainty, but it would be an absolutely extraordinary act by the federal government to claw back funds that we have clearly expended. And we have run this through our auditors as well, and they agreed that this was expenditures that we could make, that we could legally make, and that we did, and we have.
Well, that's somewhat comforting, although we are in, what was the word you just used? Extraordinary times. So, thank you. All right, Mr. Kung, you go ahead and proceed.
Okay, so as I kind of mentioned here, I'm just going to jump to the conclusion unless there's questions about the ARPA funds. But ultimately, as you can see, most of it has been spent, and the remaining amount will be spent, has been spent probably in January. Okay, so in conclusion, we're asking for an increase for general fund revenues. General fund expenditures are on track. We have an estimated fund balance of $31 million projected to be. The special funds or the non-general fund revenues and expenditures are also doing well. And we have the ARPA funds that will be spent by now. Moving on to the outlook, this is very much for the budget for 25-26. We're going to be distributing packets to the departments next week. And we anticipate that we'll be working on the budget through March and April. And then by the end of May, we'll be submitting the budget for a study session on May 27th. And we're looking for adoption on June 17th. And so the final recommendations are to receive and file the 24-25 mid-year financial review and the related reports, and approve the proposed budget amendments. Are there any questions?
Okay, does that conclude your report?
Yes, it does, sir.
Thank you, Director Kung. All right, do we have any questions from council at this time? No? No, go ahead.
I do.
Councilmember Mann? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Just trying to make sure I understand the CIP, Capital Improvement Program projects. I'm actually looking at attachment D in the staff report. And could you remind us what the difference is between the Landscape Lighting District Fund for Las Tunas versus the one for the description called LED lighting?
I can take it.
Okay, thank you.
So our landscape and lighting district is for those expenditures that are within the boundaries of the landscape and lighting district, which just think of them as the corridors of the city. Rosemead, Las Tunas, Encinitas, Santa Anita, and a few others. They can also be expended citywide for LED light fixtures. We had budgeted a few $100,000 a year out of the general fund over time for LED light conversions as well. We have not been, quite frankly, we have not been as aggressive with those as we've been concentrating on Las Tunas as well. So they're two funding sources, but can kind of do the same thing with LED lights.
So I guess, to be more specific, the recent LED conversions, is that coming from the fund assigned under Las Tunas, or because it shows we haven't expended any under the LED lighting description?
Let me take a quick look at the item itself. So for the Las Tunas project, the LED light conversion should have come from the landscape and lighting district.
Okay, so I guess I'm just trying to understand the one separate from Las Tunas, that's intended for citywide.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, that's all. I just wanted
Thank you.
to clarify.
Okay, I will open public comment at this time. Does anyone from the audience wish to comment? Jerry, come on up.
That's what happens when I don't bring my.
Good evening. Two questions. On the one slide, was there a possible error? It said fiscal year 24-24 towards the end?
Yes, if you saw that, that was an error. I apologize for that.
Okay. And the
catch,
next thing
Jerry.
is, ARPA funds, it was great. But I'm just wondering, could I get some examples of the major things were public safety? And I'm wondering just some examples of how the money was spent.
So that was spent on the sheriff's contract, just their monthly contract that they have with the city. And those are charged to the general fund typically. But that's basically for all of the sheriff's services basically here in town.
Okay. The purchase of the property, that can't be used for ARPA,
That was the general fund,
general fund?
yes.
It could not be used for ARPA.
It wasn't on the list of items that we had at that time submitted to be used for ARPA. Generally speaking, the $8 million that the city received could be used for general services. And general services, the easiest way or the easiest thing to identify would be the sheriff's contract. That's a general service that we provide.
I see.
So in that sense, it just makes the accounting and the auditing easier, is to be able to point at something and say, we used all of this money for the sheriff's contract. And whatever savings we've gotten from it, we can use for different projects. And we've used that for the Live Oak Park. We use that for the City Hall renovations here.
Good. Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you, Jerry. Anyone else? If not, I will close public comment. Any final questions or comments from council members? Nope? Okay. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we receive the fiscal year 24-25 mid-year financial review and related reports, and approve and authorize staff to revise revenue expenditure estimates as indicated in attachment A.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If we could have a roll call, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Chen?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Sternquist?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yu?
Yes.
Mayor Chavez?
Yes, thank you. Okay, we will now move on to item B, provide direction on the reuse of 9050 Las Tunas Drive. And I believe that is the former chamber site, correct?
Yes, it is, Mayor
Okay.
Chavez. Thank you, Mayor Chavez,
right.
and members of the council. Before you tonight, Mr. Reimers and Mr. Matsumoto, who have been on the executive side spearheading this effort, but I'd like to also thank the ad hoc of Councilmember Sternquist and Councilmember Mann, who helped us through this process. Mr. Reimers will go through some of the iterations. We've had this discussion on and off for the last several years, gone through many iterations and analysis, and for lack of a better term, a highest and best use analysis of the property. And the ad hoc has come to a recommendation, but wanted you to see all the iterations of some of those concepts. Today is high-level concept in terms of what we'd like to see moving forward, or what is being proposed moving forward, so that then we can issue an RFP for a landscape architect. We are, from a funding standpoint, again, to Mayor Pro Tem's point earlier about where we, what's going to be used from general fund resources or general fund reserves. This is another project that we would look for. I'll use the technical term, other people's money. We'll look towards the state. We'll look towards other folks to help us fund this. Prop A, the countywide Prop A funding is one funding source that we'll be looking towards, as we've been looking towards with the 5003 Sereno property that we just purchased recently, and are looking towards an open space project as well. We would look towards that funding source along with other funding sources as well. And also in terms of a timeline, I'll let Mr. Matsumoto touch base on what a timeline looks like from RFP to, maybe having construction drawings ready and then going out for, if that's where we would go, but just the completion of that project as well. So with that, Mr. Mayor, if I can turn it over to Mr. Reimers and Mr. Matsumoto.
Please, who's going to go first?
Mr. Reimers.
Mr. Reimers? Oh, okay, you're sitting there, that's right, okay.
Good evening,
You
Mayor.
don't get a chair, you have to stand.
Yeah.
That's right.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So this goes back to April of 2021 when the staff at that time brought forward 6 different concepts and the council asked us to look at 3 specific ones. So 3 of them were kind of set aside, and that was a concept that was more retail space and occupied. Another one was an incubator space, and another was a fast food restaurant. The 3 that the council asked us to continue working on was in a senior affordable housing project, a public park project, and a restaurant space where we adaptively reuse the building. So on January 16th of 2024, to move the project forward, we had RSG, which is an economic development consultant, look at those 3 different scenarios that the council asked us to consider further. And they provided us feedback on each of those concepts. Their basic feedback was that there would be large financing gaps if we tried to move forward with an affordable housing project, and recommended not moving forward with that. They also looked at a park with a community room or community room and kitchen, and also found some financial gaps with that. But in the end, their recommendation was to move forward with a redevelopment project that looked at turning the space into a public use, most likely a park space. So with that, in February, you convened an ad hoc committee, and they reviewed RSG's findings. We took that to the committee back in February. The committee asked us to continue exploring some different open space options. And in May, we hired RRM, which is a design firm. They do landscape design, architectural design. They do our own design work for the planning department. So they did 4 different concepts, which we then presented to the committee back in October of 2024. So those 4 concepts we want to present to you tonight. The main feature that they moved forward was option 4, so that's the last one we'll be presenting. They did want us to present and spend a little bit of time as well on option 2, because it was just kind of out of the box. But in the end, their recommendation was to support option 4, but with some changes, and that was to remove the parking on Lyledale and to really look at some creative, innovative play spaces.
Is Lyledale that street that runs kind of behind the property?
Yes, sir.
Kind of like, it's almost like an alley, really.
Exactly, yes. It's a private street that's about 30 feet wide. It services the single-family and multifamily uses that are on Lyledale Street. The site that we're looking at today is highlighted in yellow. That's the former site of the Chamber of Commerce, also the temporary Temple City Library, Express Library. It is 22,000 square feet in size. So that's approximately the size of Primrose Park, not counting the parking lot. So it right now has 39 parking spaces, and that house that's on it, or former house, is about 1,500 square feet in size. So when RRM started their review, they made sure that each of the concepts that the ad hoc was looking at, and that you'll see tonight, had some place-making elements. Those are elements that would be specific to Temple City. They would be unique to us. They would be stylized differently than another city. They also wanted to make sure that they had picnic and seating areas, that there'd be a strong gateway element. That was important to the committee, that as you were entering this space, you would be kind of feel like you're entering the downtown. And then they also proposed some EV charging sites. So again, the focus for tonight is not to really get into site planning all that much, or specifically into the design features. Really our goal tonight is to get your feedback on what is the future use of the property, in terms of, do you want it to be a park space with a very large playground, and that's the main focus, or did you want us to focus more on kind of economic development goals or something like that? If you do have feedback, we're happy to take that and work it into the next stage of the process. So this is concept 1. Concept 1 was not one of the recommended options. In this option, the existing building shown as item number 4 on the plan would be retained and would be remodeled. It would be repurposed into a community room. Items number 1 and 2 on that map are a plaza and a gathering space. There'd be games there like cornhole and table hockey and bocce ball. This one was not highly favored by the committee because the Parks and Recreation Department didn't feel like there's a very strong need for community rental space in the community. And also, it would pose some strong issues in terms of staffing that community room. And also, I think the feedback from the committee was that there's no playground in this option. So this one was set aside. Concept 2 was the one that the committee really wanted us to bring forward to you and just kind of highlight, although it was not the final recommendation. It is a little bit out of the box. So the goal of this one was to really focus on supporting the downtown and serving as an entry point to the downtown. So the existing building shown as item number 4 would be remodeled and converted into a ghost kitchen. So that might not be a familiar term to a lot of people. A ghost kitchen is the idea that this is a space where someone leases the kitchen or rents the kitchen to an entrepreneur for a time, so that they can see whether they could get a full restaurant going in the future. So often it's a small kitchen, it's used temporarily, and then people purchase food through an app. They come to the site and pick it up, or they can eat on site. So this was an idea to kind of support small businesses in the community, to try to tie it into what's happening in the downtown. The RRM also said that you could, in area 3, which is the parking lot, you could, on special occasions or weekly, you could have a food truck area to help enliven the space, and then people could buy food from the food truck and then sit in one of the dining areas, picnic areas. If the city council did want to move forward, this wouldn't be something that staff would really manage in terms of the leases. You would move forward a franchise agreement, find a tenant to actually run the kitchen, and they would be the ones finding the sublessees. Let's see. So in the end, the tenant space and the space outside of it would function more like a outdoor kind of food market with cafe lighting and tables and shelters. So.
Mr. Reed, I noticed in the staff report, actually, on the top left-hand corner, you have anticipated costs. Perhaps you can mention the differences between different options.
Yeah, here we asked the consultant to just try to give us a range of figures in terms of how much would be required in order to make this change. This one obviously would be one of the more expensive costs because putting in a full commercial kitchen would be quite expensive. So this one you would expect to see a higher cost.
Yeah, and option 1 would be lowest.
Option 1 would be the lowest because you're keeping the existing structure, just doing a little remodel work, and then adding in some picnic furniture and some games and such. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And then concept 3, which is the last one I'll be preparing for you tonight, and then I'll throw it over to Adam, is called the Community Hub. In this one, there would be parking along Lyledale Street for food trucks. And then as people purchase food at the food trucks, they could go and eat in a large central plaza gathering area. This is the largest central plaza of all the different concepts that are before you tonight. The building would be relocated from its existing location up to the northeast side of the property, so kind of as close to the current Vietnamese restaurant that's there now. The benefit of that is that it would help reinforce that Los Tunas corridor where the buildings are up near the street. And then it would also provide a buffer from the play space, which is in item 2, that purple space there. So the play space would be buffered from the street by the building. So there'd be a small playground space there. This one was not highly favored, mostly because of the impacts to the residents on Lyledale. Notice that all the parking is accessible only off of Lyledale, and there was concerns about all these food trucks being placed right next to a residential neighborhood and issues of noise and traffic and such. So that one was not recommended. And then the last one is concept 4, and that was the one that was recommended by the committee.
Excuse me. Thank you, Director Reimers. Good evening, Mayor Chavez, City Council members. So what we're reviewing right now is concept 4, which was the recommended option for the ad hoc committee. Concept 4 does have more of a larger play area, really, being more of a traditional open space park type of option to explore. This concept 4, the one that we have up on the presentation, was the first option or the first iteration of concept 4. The committee did have some feedback, most specifically regarding that parking along Lauderdale. Really, that's not desired, from a impact from those residents and just the location of that. So we wanted to explore with RRM removing that, as well as enlarging the play area and really making that more of a focal point. So if you flip to the next slide, that is the modification of concept 4 based off of the feedback from the ad hoc committee. So with this concept idea, you'll see a much larger play area, utilizing the existing parking lot, so that entry point is off of Las Tunas, and then having a little bit larger of a central plaza gathering area and a smaller picnic and dining space area. In addition to the larger play area, one of the concepts that was, or themes that was explored and discussed by the ad hoc committee was really coming up with some really inventive, creative play spaces. And you'll see some of that on the next slide of looking at more of an organic, nature-based theme potentially. So that kind of fits more, or it balances the commercial nature of that area and softens that place a little bit with more of those natural touches. And this was the really the direction that the ad hoc had wanted to take a look at. So those are the 4 options that were presented. Option 4, concept 4, was the one that was recommended. And then we'll take a look at the next steps. And this is part of the timeline. So based on the recommendation by the council tonight, we would take those recommendations and then start working on drafting an RFP. That RFP would be for design services, development of concept designs for the old chamber site. So we would look at releasing the RFP within 1.5 to 2 months, 30 days for the bidding process, and then hopefully accepting a design agreement by early summer. And then really the design firm will dictate the duration of the project going forward. So we'll want to still receive community feedback as part of the design process. We want to create time for both the Parks and Recreation Commission and the City Council to review those concept designs before we actually enter into the construction document phase and then going out to bid for construction of that final concept design. So those are the next steps. And then for tonight's meeting, what we're looking at is receiving direction from council regarding the reuse of the old chamber site at 9050 Las Tunas, and then directing staff to move forward with that request for proposals for design services of that site. That concludes our staff report, and both Director Reimers and I are here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will start with council questions. Does anybody on council have any questions for staff? Councilmember Sternquist?
No.
Councilmember Mann? No questions?
May I have just a simple one?
Yeah.
When I look at option 4, it kind of reminiscent of Primrose Park in some sense. Granted, there's inflation involved, but could you remind us roughly what Primrose Park had cost?
A little of about 2.5, I think 2.5 to 2.9 million.
Yeah, and then also, we actually got
yes, and that was
from the state as well. Like to Mr. City Manager's point, we'll spend somebody else's money first, right? So I just kind of want to ask that question because it gives us a sense of what option 4 might have cost us. Okay. Just ballparking.
Ballpark, and then with that project was completed in 2022. So with some additional inflation, we probably see increased costs as well. But that's a good ballpark figure.
Yeah, 3 to 4.
Based on the size.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's good to look at that because we just heard from Mr. Kung about fund balance, so it's kind of put things in perspective.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I remember when we first started discussing this, it's been a while, there was a distinction made between park and open space. Is there, maybe Mr. City Attorney, is there still a distinction in that from the sense of, if I recall, if we did what we would term to be an open space, we would have more flexibility in maybe using that area for a different use down the road, whereas if we call it a park, that would be more problematic. Once a park, always a park. Is that still true today?
I was just going to say, you don't need me at all. You have it exactly right. Once you dedicate land as park use land, it's exceedingly difficult under California law to transfer it to a different type of use. That was why you went through the process of trying to decide, do you want it to be an open space gathering area or a different type of community amenity? Because, as you said, sir, once it becomes a park, then generally a park, it will stay in one form or another.
So I guess my next question is, would concept 4 be considered a park? Or would it be considered an open space? And how do we determine that?
I'm pretty sure we consider a park. I mean,
well, that's what I would say also.
Yeah, the CEQA finding with this California Environmental Quality Act finding would say that if you were going to take it away, you have to somehow mitigate and provide similar amenities somewhere else.
I would agree.
Part of our analysis that we've been going through over the last few years, though, has been to exhaust all options related to what it is. So that's why I think if you're asking how did we come to this conclusion today, right?
But I don't see an option for open space. Is there?
Well, I think the
option?
closest open space would probably be option 1.
But that was not recommended.
No.
I believe option 2, you could potentially make
You could
the
make an
case
argument too.
that that's not parks. That would leave more flexibility for future use. Option 2.
However, I believe that you can leave it open space, but the minute you allow folks to use it in any shape or form, it becomes a park or consider a park. And
is that true?
And so when, for example, when we do land banking at the county, we actually fence it off. We don't let people touch it.
So you have an open space that nobody can touch?
We fence it off.
To what end is that?
We fence it off because the moment you open it, then it becomes public use that you need to mitigate when you take it away down the road.
I think also in trying to secure outside funding, that you might not get funds for open space, but for park, because we are designated as a park poor city. The funding is more available towards a park.
That's very true, very, very true.
So this would be the 1, 2, 4th park that we've created in the last year or two, I guess, if we go this route.
Yeah.
Maybe we won't be known as Park 4 any longer.
I think we still will be.
I've got to stop here because Mr. Murphy's going to say that I'm making comments and not asking questions. So. We'll get to that in a minute.
That's very good.
Okay. Well, I guess those are all the questions I have at this point. So why don't we move on to public comment? Does anybody in the audience wish to make a public comment? Pastor Kelty, why don't you come on up? And then Jerry, you can follow him.
I'm Darrell Kelty. I like concept very much. The only thing I worry about is people making illegal left turns either in or out of the parking lot onto Las Tunas. Our church is right south of Las Tunas, and there must be 50, 60 people a day who make illegal left turns in and out. It scares me every time, thinking one of those is going to end up at my front door one time.
Okay, maybe,
I like
hold on
the
one
concept,
second.
but
Hold on one second. Can you put the photo back up of the, yeah, so the
Yeah,
concept
where's
for-
the in and out?
So what left turn are you talking about? The one on?
The parking
from
lot.
Las Tunas onto the
Las Tunas
parking
where
lot?
the arrow, the headed arrow is.
Okay,
People making illegal left turns out of it or into it,
Yeah.
that parking lot.
Oh, from into
Because-
Tunas, okay.
They do it on Las Tunas and Red Temple Boulevard all the time, and it just scares my
Well,
faith.
unless you put barriers up there, you know they're gonna go across the whole thing. I can guarantee it.
We have some options with that. We just employed an option most recently on Rosemead Boulevard.
Thank you, Mr. Kelton.
So that has some barriers that would assist, so that we
Where,
brought.
where?
If you go Rosemead Boulevard,
Oh, yeah.
Longden, so.
Yeah, by Longden.
So there's some option, Pastor Kelty brings up a good point, but there are options for us in terms of mitigation measures.
Sure, no, I understand. Okay, Jerry?
Yes, Mayor. Jerry Jambasian. Just wondering if the council has given any thought to a senior center. Having served on the Committee on Aging committee now for several years, we keep talking about this, that there's not a place for our seniors to really gather and to recreate and to gather other than the meals and that type of thing at Live Oak Park. So I'm just wondering if any thought has been given to having a senior center. And to me, I don't know, it's been a long time since I've been in that house, but 1,500 square feet seems to be stretching it. I didn't think it was that big, but maybe it is. It must be. But it just doesn't seem all that big inside. But I'm just wondering if it could be repurposed into a senior center. To me, it just doesn't look like a good spot for a park in that part of town. So that's just my personal feeling. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak at this time? All right, seeing no one, I will close public comment, and we will take any final questions from council or comments. We'll start up to my left, Councilmember Chen. Any final questions or comments?
Well, I just want to applaud the committee for doing a really awesome job with option 4. I think a central plaza or gathering area is something I think would go along with, just by placemaking or I forgot what the term that was used in here. That section of Las Tunas, it would kind of give us an identity. So I thought it was between the option 4 that originally drafted and kind of what the consultant had kind of filled out the spaces with the input of committee. I thought that was a really, really nice job, and I can't wait to see what other ideas or what other things they can focus on. Primrose Park is one of the most used park, at all hours of the day. So I think the idea that there could be a safe space, and I feel safe when I'm at Primrose Park because of its unique nature, fencing it off. And I see those design elements here that are kind of, the children's play area in option 4 are kind of kept to the side. Given that Camellia Square and as well as some of our biggest shopping centers in the city are just basically diagonally across the street, I was just thinking what type of synergy there could be, like perhaps, they pick up something from Meat Fresh and then walking diagonally across the street where the adults are enjoying their dessert while kids are playing on the playground, or I like what the committee had done. I think the idea of a adult gathering space or central gathering space that gives us identity is very positive. I'll keep my comment short. That'll be all.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the committee for coming up with this option. I think to Jerry's point, we have considered, I think the committee had considered other, senior housing was one of the grants, not senior center. But that is substantially a funding gap. And to Councilmember Sternquist's point, if we were to develop this as a park, I think we may have stand a good chance of getting additional grants, being a park poor city. And the other point I was going to make too is that, I like the fact that they put that little gateway element there. And I think, with Las Tunas turning at an angle, I think that is actually a very, very powerful point. And not that I'm saying, but I'm suggesting, but, something like, the gazebo becomes a sort of a Temple City symbol. I mean, something similar to that sort of thing will become an entry, something that people will remember. I do think that this part of town really does not have a whole lot of park space. I mean, we have Live Oak Park, we have Temple City Park, and now we're the Sereno Park, but this part of town really doesn't have enough. So I'm actually quite comfortable in developing it into a park, and by investing in a park, we don't need to change it to another use in the future. I think we have done. Actually, Temple City becomes quite a park place. I mean, look at the Primrose, the Rocket, and all the other things we've been doing. I'm very happy to see another one. So, thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you. Councilmember Sternquist, any final comments?
Just one thing, when the committee did meet, we did look at repurposing the building, but it was just cost prohibitive to really do something that would be substantial, like a senior center, to the amount of money it would take to rehab that with ADA requirements now and bathroom updates. It seemed like that wasn't an area that we thought would be the best for that area, but most of it was the cost to rehab that. So that's all.
No. I noted it. So, I'm sorry. Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Sure. Councilmember Mann?
Yeah, and I think I'll just add on to Councilmember Sternquist's point. I think, to like Mr. Jambazian's comment about it doesn't seem like 1,500 square feet. I get the same sense of that every time I walk through that building. And just trying to, I think part of the part we were struggling with and asking staff's feedback was really programmatically, what can you really do with that space? And it became more and more apparent that the demand might not be there to use such a small space. I wouldn't want us to be in a position where, let's say hypothetically, we did develop it into a senior center or some kind of center, and people go in there and say that's it, like that's all you have to offer us. We kind of want to manage those expectations as well. If anything, I feel like the programming side is probably where we can strengthen that area using our existing facilities at Live Oak Park. I will say it was a very enriching experience working with our consultant and also with staff and Councilmember Sternquist. The ghost kitchen idea piqued our interest just because it was something that was, I guess none of us really was expecting that as a suggestion. We asked for some actual cases of successful uses of ghost kitchens in other areas, and I think I don't remember the exact example.
Isn't there one? Isn't that what they do in Pasadena, where I believe there's like several restaurants that you can go and get food out of one location?
That must have been the example.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
Not Marengo. I don't know what. It's right below Colorado. In fact, you order food. Like, let's say you want to get food from what's the restaurant up in Hastings Ranch, the steak place?
Stonefire?
Stonefire. You can go there, get Stonefire food. I don't know how they do it, but you pick up Stonefire food at this little place. You walk in, and it's just a counter, and they have your food ready for you. So I think that's what they refer to as.
It was on Madison.
Madison, that's
and
it.
it's out of business.
Oh, is it out of business? All right.
Well, I guess maybe not
So
the
that's
best
why we didn't
example.
go that route, I guess.
And I think part of that was the concern about, every time you do something like that, there's questions about how we manage the programming, how do we make it successful. Same thing with like food trucks. I think the whole idea of like trying to make space for food trucks loses its appeal really quickly when you realize, well, they can legally set up pretty much anywhere. So why would they want to force themselves into a single designated space if they already found out where they want to be? And then at the end of the day, I think we always go back to this idea of us constantly being labeled or categorized as a park poor city. And to like Mayor Pro Tem Yu's point, this is an area, northwest-ish part of the city that doesn't really have that space. So considering what space we had to work with, and I was also encouraged by the fact that when we compare this to Primrose, that it was similar, right, minus the parking area. And I'm more encouraged by the fact that we were successful with Primrose, from maximizing or optimizing the use of that space into what I would agree with Councilmember Chen is a very highly used park, especially on the weekends. So I have that belief that this council, along with staff and consultants, if we pursued Concept 4, we'd be able to develop something unique, but also of high quality, something that our residents deserve.
Okay. Thank you to all of you. Very, very good comments. Make a lot of sense. I just had couple of questions and maybe concerns. And I know we've been talking about the other parks, Live Oak, Primrose, and of course the park right outside here. I think the main difference for me between those park areas and this proposed park area is that this happens to be in what I would term to be a high traffic area. Those others are not. And so to me, that's a big difference from a safety standpoint. And I would ask that maybe moving forward, if this is the direction we are going to go, that we do look at some mitigating features regarding traffic, especially the corner on Sultana and Las Tunas. Cars can tend to come pretty quickly through there. Maybe put up some decorative barriers or something like that, although I do like the fact that the play area is sort of in the back, but there are areas there in the front that people will be using, maybe not children, but adults perhaps, and it is kind of open to the traffic there. And also, as was mentioned earlier, maybe some traffic mitigation regarding going in and out of that park area is necessary. As City Manager Cook said, we've had some experience with that on Rosemead Boulevard that seems to have been successful, because unfortunately, and we've heard through speakers tonight, there are people out there that don't really always follow the law. That's hard to believe, but it happens. And, if you leave that open right there with that parking lot, yes, there will be illegal left turns, there will be going across traffic, and that's just going to cause other problems. So I think that can be mitigated. And so I would hope that we look into that as well. Senior center, Jerry, you bring up a good point, but I don't even know if that's big enough for a senior center. And if it was, then that would be the sole use, really, to me. I mean, it looks big on the picture, but it really is not that big. And then when you have parking, my better idea on that would be somehow to figure out how to utilize Live Oak Park better as a dedicated senior center area, perhaps, and maybe work around that in the future. But that's for another discussion, another day. Anytime people bring up food trucks,
you love
council
them.
member, City Manager Cook knows my feelings on that. I do not want to see food trucks parked anywhere near this place, unless, of course, maybe it's a special event that we might have. We do bring those in occasionally. But, if we're going to, I think the one, although it's not on the table, to have food trucks parked on that street, I doubt that the neighbors would appreciate that too much. Let's see. Now, I believe, Director Matsumoto, you did mention that part of the process will be a community outreach process that we will propose, like we've done in the past for these types of projects. Because my feeling is, will people use this as a park? I know it's been mentioned up here that it's very close to commercial areas that people shop in, and perhaps we'll get some of the overflow there that could happen. Yes, there's no question that this part of the city is park poor, and putting a park there would make it probably desirable. It is close to, on the border of other cities, so I'm sure people from San Gabriel or Rosemead could use it as well. It wouldn't just be Temple City residents necessarily, but I guess we would get some feedback on that at some point. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we do, when we get that feedback, we try to incorporate into how we're going to move forward ultimately, I believe, correct?
Most certainly.
I mean, we have a concept, but as far as maybe the final details.
Right. And in addition to that, too, around that area, the zoning is also R2 and much part of that area. So you have what I would call the more denser parts of the city, not the most dense part of the city, but denser parts of the community in that area. So that's part of the reason why we think there's going to be kind of a built-in audience, for lack of a better term, that will kind of be in that area as well, that services that.
We lost our thing. I know, yeah, did you take it off? Okay. If you could put it back on the park, the concept, yeah, thank you. Otherwise, I mean, and is that a good representation of the parking space? It's not a very big parking lot, obviously.
No.
And what is the parking situation around there now? I mean, do we have street parking in that particular area? I wouldn't want, for example, it might be difficult. I wouldn't want people to park on Lyledale. I don't even know if there is parking available on Lyledale. And I wouldn't want that to interrupt with the people who live there. So maybe, you know, I guess Sultana would be maybe a parking potential there. Obviously, as I think Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, they could always walk across the street from the shopping centers, which brings up another point. You know, I would like to see some mitigating measures on those crosswalks and make them safer, perhaps.
Sure.
Because especially we have children and adults walking across there to use that facility, it would make more sense to have something maybe more than what we have there now. Okay, and okay, well, like I said, it sounds to me like the conflict between open space and park. It sounds to me like the only thing that could qualify as an open space is if we just put grass on there or something and leave it. We go anything beyond that, it's going to be a park. That's what it sounds like to me anyway, from a legal standpoint, but I could be wrong. But there's no question that everything that we've seen so far probably would not even qualify for an open space, so that's probably not going to happen at this
We'll
point.
just be known as the Play Council.
Yeah, there you go. Well, hopefully one of these days we won't be known as Park Board. Although, you know, I mean, we're doing the best we can, I think, at the end of the day, with the space that we have. I mean, nobody could really come back and say, hey, you're not really trying, because we are. I mean, we don't have acres and acres of land that we can turn into a park like they do out in San Bernardino County or Riverside County. But we make do with what we can. And I think we've done a pretty good job, especially with the areas that we do have now. This would just be an additional, you know, thing that we would have available to the public. And, yeah, it looks good. Now, so there will be play areas, correct? But that has yet to be determined, I guess, the final design. You've given us some examples of that, but.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, all right.
And then, if I may,
Yeah, go
Mayor
ahead.
Chavez, just,
Sure.
obviously, we don't want to be designated as a park poor community, but with that also comes some
Some money.
availability of funding
Yeah,
and
yeah,
funding
it's all-
sources. So
and
the
it all-
Sereno
yeah.
project is a perfect example. We
Yeah.
were allocated funds from county because we're considered a park poor city from our 2016 park audit study. So there's that.
Yeah, and I'm not naive to think that it doesn't always, but a lot of it depends on money and funding and sources that we can get to make these things happen. So I completely understand that. Okay, I don't have any other comments or questions. Is there anybody else that wishes to make any final comments? Mayor Pro Tem, did you? Yeah, of course, go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed that there's no bathroom at least
yeah,
indicated,
that's right.
right?
Thank you
With
for,
those.
there's no bathrooms.
Right. So,
We're at a concept level, so that potentially could or cannot be explored as part of the design contract.
So somewhere maybe we can throw it in there at some point?
Potentially.
Yeah, okay, because that's going to be brought up at some point, at least by one council member. Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I know we've had issues at Primrose Park, but it is used as a bathroom for the most part, correct? I mean.
Yes, I think having it there and the amount of issues we've had is pretty minimal compared to the positive comments we've had from families, appreciating that present at a park.
And certainly, this is a little bit different in that there are other, perhaps, restrooms closer by, but at the same time, I truly believe that most restaurants don't just want to cater to families and their children coming in to just use the restroom rather than purchasing something there, I guess.
Well, speaking as a parent, sometimes you got to go.
You got to
right
go.
away
You got to go.
and
All right.
need close access.
So yeah, we'll have to. That'll be for a future time. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I completely forgot about that. So, okay. With that, unless there are any further questions or comments, thank you, staff, for putting that together. 2021, is that when we started on this thing? My gosh. Well, we got to get something done. There's no question about that. I mean, it is time. So, okay. Well, then I will entertain a motion if anybody is willing to put one together there for us. Or do we need a motion, or do you have enough direction based on the discussion? I see that it doesn't. We're really providing direction to staff. Do we need a formal motion for that?
I think staff would probably prefer a motion.
Pick a concept, maybe.
A motion
if possible?
to pick the concept
Okay.
and then to issue the request for proposal. So
Okay.
that they know they have
All right.
direction on that.
So you want to take a shot at that, Mayor Pro
I'll
Tem?
take a shot at it,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I'll move that we proceed with option number 4 and prepare an RFP for design services to bring back options for the council to, more developed options for the council to consider.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, if we could have roll call, please?
Councilmember Chen,
Yes.
Councilmember Mann,
Yes.
Councilmember Sternquist.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yu,
Yes.
Mayor Chavez.
Yes. All right, thank you, everyone, for that. Maybe one of these days we can find another place to put a ball field, right, Councilmember Chen?
Absolutely. I thought about it.
No one's ever mentioned a batting cage anywhere, though. I don't know, maybe we could fit one in there somewhere sometime. I don't know. Maybe Live Oak Park, they want one there. Okay. All right, we will now move on. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation in that. We will now move on to item 11, update from our city manager, Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Chavez and members of the council. We have a busy few days ahead.
Yes.
Wednesday night, we will be conducting with staff and any volunteers who wish, please contact my office. We are commencing the homeless count. We will be meeting at the EOC right here. We will begin the count if you can be here by 6 p.m. But for those who are interested, please contact our office.
When are you asking people to meet at the EOC? 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, but you have to go, if they can contact our office first, because there's some things that LASA is requiring through registration and waivers and things like that, because this is not just simply walking around. It's a very regimented process that they go through. So,
and what will be the time that people will actually be out on the streets?
So we want to conclude, for people's safety reasons and others, we want to conclude that no later than 11 p.m.
11 p.m.
So that's where we're trying to conclude, but we will be here tomorrow night. So if anybody is interested, please call our office at City Hall, and we will help you. So homeless count. Tomorrow, Wednesday morning as well, we will be closing down Las Tunas to begin the process for the Camellia Festival, which will happen this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Saturday, and weather is looking good.
Yes, very good.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as well. So we're really happy. And thank you to all the Camellia Festival team members. Mr. Jambazian's here, Don Tarrin, and Kathy Burrows, our former colleague, who is now festival co-chair as well. And thank you to the entire team, our sheriff's department, and everyone in our sheriff's department who's just come off an exhausting month themselves, and will be at their fullest capacity that they can for the Camellia Festival and during the all of the festivities. So, which is great. And then I'll just mention briefly, last but not least, Tuesday, February 25th. At the Historical Society Women's Club Hall, right off on Woodruff, will be the State of the City, Propelling into Our Future by Mayor Chavez. Reception's at 5:30, and the ceremony will begin at 6:30. So we have a busy few days ahead of us. Thank you, Mr.
We should probably have Jerry do the calendars.
Neighborhood Watch is this Thursday at, why don't?
The Temple City High School.
Thank you.
The Media Center.
Thank you. Temple City High School Media Center will technically, well, it will.
No. What do they call it?
Senate room.
Senate room?
Yeah.
They've renamed it?
That's what I get from.
Yeah, it's in that general area. There will be plenty of signage.
Library. I just call it the library.
If you come off of Lemon, there's go into the parking lot. There'll be plenty of signage for you to see to get there. So that'll be we had to cancel and we'll reschedule our January meeting for the end of the year. It'll be revamped. There will be some different topics to be discussed throughout this year's Neighborhood Watch meeting. And so be there. And just because you're not in that general vicinity, it is open to everybody. Thank you, Mr. Jambazian.
Is that it?
That'll be it, sir.
Thank you. We do have a few busy few days coming up, that's for sure. All right, update from our city attorney, Mr. Murphy.
None tonight, sir.
Nothing tonight. How are you doing personally? Okay?
Living the dream, sir.
I know you are. We unfortunately every day I hear more and more from people who have been unfortunately severely, maybe even not severely affected by our fires. It's just never ending, but we'll get through it. All right, we will now move on to council reports regarding ad hoc or standing committee meetings. I believe that it's not on the agenda, and I don't know if we need to add that, but I know that the ad hoc committee for the signage at Live Oak Park, we don't have that on our list, but I know they did meet, correct?
Yes.
Is it okay for them to report out on that, or do we need to add that to the agenda? Or
They can give a
can
quick.
I just add it? I'll add it to the agenda?
Yeah, it's not an action item, it's simply a report,
Yeah,
so I'm
report
okay
out.
with it.
Okay, so do you want to go ahead and start off with that?
We could
Okay,
report
thank you.
out. Yeah, so Councilmember Sternquist and I recently met with our Parks and Rec Director, Matsumoto, and our consultant to look at the signage that was last discussed at a previous council meeting, the signage for Live Oak Park Playground. And I guess to be kind of concise, the direction we provided was that we wanted something more tangible from the consultant, so that it could be brought back to council and show exactly what examples of these would look like. Our discussion was still mainly focused on looking at whether you wanted something more abstract versus something more kind of your typical sign. And so our direction was, well, really, we would be open to any of those possibilities, but we really need to have something that we can kind of wrap our arms around and not like just kind of abstract options of what the signage would look like. When we were talking earlier about the old chamber site, I don't know why it just kind of struck me that, maybe that level of detail when the standing committee worked on the old chamber site allowed us to better differentiate between kind of the different choices that council would have. So I believe the next steps are the consultant will be working on something more tangible and then bringing it back to the ad hoc for one quick review before it comes back to council. So.
And I think we're not running out of time. Is Adam? I think we're okay. You don't need to come up, but I believe that we wanted to at least get it. I know we had talked last time about it. We could always add that afterwards.
Yes.
So I mean, we're not that big on time, but it would be nice to get it in sooner than later, obviously.
Yeah, but we do want to.
Did they say when they're going to be coming back to you guys, or how long it's going to take?
I don't know if Director Matsumoto. Yeah,
A few weeks.
Couple
okay,
weeks.
all right, good.
Yeah.
We're still on schedule then. Perfect. Okay.
Councilmember Stinkers?
Did you?
I just think that because we had worked on the old chamber site, repurposing of that we did look at some very unique signage for that corner. And so when we saw these, it just paled in comparison, I think. So we thought it was just best to give some more direction because we really wanted to be wowed, I think, and we weren't at that state, so.
Is it time to maybe look for another consultant for that, or, I mean, I don't know how that works. Mr. City Manager, are we contracted with this company in some way?
Yeah, it's SWA who's
Okay,
working
that's the
with,
one who's-
and who's designed the whole project.
Okay,
So
so
it's
we're
just trying to
part of it.
blend the vision together and
Okay.
just make sure we
Right.
kind of come together as a team
Okay.
to kind of realize the vision where the council wants to go and what we want to do. So, and we've been successful in that collaboration throughout this process.
Okay.
And I think, Adam, it was a new person on board, right? Because I haven't seen him before.
Yeah, well, I think Ryan had worked with us before
Right.
on previous items. He did bring on a new team member that I don't think we've worked with. But in SWA's defense, if we look at our previous collaboration with them, it was an iterative process. So I saw this more as this was just you needed to go through this step to get everyone more confident about the direction that they were going towards. And I could understand SWA not wanting to maybe crank out a lot of different things that could consume a lot of their time. And then we say, well, this wasn't what we asked for. So I think if anything, this gave them some more confirmation and confidence that, hey, we truly wanted something more tangible, so that, because working with council, I think the two of us understand council that we want to be able to pin something down and not just kind of deal in these kind of conceptual
But I
things.
thought we sort of expressed that at our meeting, and that was a few months ago. And apparently they came back this time with nothing that was really more substantive.
Yeah, I think there may have been a misunderstanding of what substantive meant. I think they were still looking at, because within the realm of signage, maybe the takeaway was that really it's kind of limitless in terms of the different possibilities you can kind of draw up. So understandably from the creative space, they were probably really trying to figure out how to tie that down.
Right.
And I think William and I were looking for something very unique. And I think now they have a better understanding that we didn't want something ordinary.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you guys are on top of it, so hopefully we'll get something sooner than later. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Matsumoto. Okay, anybody else have any reports, any ad hoc or standing committee meetings? I don't think we've had any others. I do have a question for Madam City Clerk. I noticed in the email you sent regarding the upcoming commissioner recruitment, you had, in the calendar, had put in there on the timeline to create an ad hoc for that in March. Do we want to do that now, or do you want to, is March okay? Because we're near the end of February already, but, I mean.
If it pleases the mayor, you can establish the ad hoc tonight if you like.
Is there anything for the ad hoc to do at this point, or are we, in other words, we can wait until March and we'll still be within the time frame of what has to be done. Okay, so I guess, why don't we do that, and then perhaps, and I don't know if it's going to be the first meeting or the second meeting in March. Keep in mind that the second meeting in March is the reorganization meeting, So we try to not do a lot of work at that time, but perhaps it's something that we have to get done in March, though. So maybe the next meeting, although the only reason I bring it up is I'm not going to be at the next meeting. But I don't think, Greg, they don't need to do an ad hoc. So maybe that would be something we want to think about in the first meeting in March to create that ad hoc. And maybe other colleagues can start thinking about whether you want to be on there or not.
Do you want to be on the ad hoc? 'Cause if you're not going to be
You know, I think I was on it last time, wasn't I? Who was on that last year? Was it you and I, Ed? Oh, that's right. And then you, remember you couldn't come, that you were sick? And then I did it, and I went into hospital the next day. So, no, I don't want to be on it again.
I'm not sure I want to be on that kind of
I
subcommittee.
think Ed needs to fulfill.
Yeah, Ed needs to fulfill his duty. So he's already on there automatically. All right. Well, you guys can figure that out. But yeah, if you need somebody in absentee, I'll do it. I don't mind. I just think it's always good to spread it out, because we don't want the same council members on there every year, because then it always becomes like well, there's the ones who are appointing every year. So anyway, okay, so we'll wait till March to do that. I just wanted to bring that up, so we're good. Okay, we will now move on to item 14, council items separate from the city manager's regular report. Councilmember Mann, do you have anything to add?
See, I wrote it down. Hold on. Oh, yes. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to the Camellia Festival. Excited that we got the rain out of the way. So I'm sure it'll be a fantastic event. And speaking of rain, something that perhaps goes unnoticed sometimes is the great job our staff does in preparation prior to the rains. So I just want to give a shout out to not just our city manager, but all of our staff who really takes care of those things to make sure we don't get flooding or other crazy issues. As we've seen, many of the communities impacted by the fire, the rains kind of serves as like a double whammy, unfortunately. You get the burn areas, the rain kind of brings it down. So all in all, kind of going through 2025, we realize how tough it has been for the greater Southern California community. And from my perspective, and for all of us who live here in Temple City, I think it's also a time to count our blessings of what we have here at home. Also, I believe next week the chamber is also hosting the State of Public Safety. Is
next Friday.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that.
February 28th.
Yeah, next Friday, the 28th.
Also at the Women's Club?
No, it's at the
Grand Harbor Restaurant.
Oh, it's at the Grand. Okay, I'm.
Yes.
Grand Harbor Restaurant in Rouge.
Maybe, maybe we'll have another reminder sent out.
Yeah, I'll have to send one.
And it's been posted on social media quite a bit.
I'm confusing it with, because last year they had it.
Yeah, last year was at the Women's Club.
At the Women's
This
Club.
year's at Grand Harbor Restaurant.
Okay, got it.
11 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's
Thank you for
where
bringing that up.
Sheriff Luna's going to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sternquist, anything to add?
I just wanted to ask, because I hadn't heard, but are we going to do something for the staff for kind of just an appreciation for everything that they did during this difficult times, and invite our sheriffs?
We haven't had that. We haven't planned for that yet, but we will. And the mayor will be doing a little bit of an acknowledgement of that during his State of the City as well.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, we had talked about, and thank you for bringing that up, to perhaps do it at a council meeting, but I thought
Nice.
maybe if we can, this group of individuals are fantastic, but they're a little shy. And we're trying to get them to attend the State of the City so they can be recognized at maybe a little larger event
Okay.
and stuff. So thank you for that, but yeah, one way or another. And I think we are kind of overdue for a staff in and out truck day or something like that. I don't know. We'll talk about that later. So, okay, thank you. Anything else?
That's all.
All right. Councilmember Chen, anything?
Just have one quick report out from the Clean Power Alliance, one of the assignments that I have. The Clean Power Alliance is now looking at its second round of Power Ready program, which equips or helps municipalities and partner cities with a clean energy alternative to backup generators. So with the natural disasters that we've been going through recently, this is sounds like a pretty good deal with solar panels, addition to generators, or that would back up, battery storage that would act like a generator in terms of providing some emergency backup to critical facilities that we have. But also, I think we have several county buildings, libraries, sheriffs, for example. I think it would be a very great candidate. As I was going through that meeting, I know I emailed our city manager, and actually he's already got a plan to meet with Clean Power Alliance on electric vehicle charging stations, et cetera. So I just wanted to report that out real quickly.
Thank you. Thank you for attending those meetings.
One last thing, Tom.
Okay, go ahead.
You mentioned electric charging vehicles. Where's Scott? Scott's still here? So Hyundai just announced they're going to give us, those of us who have Hyundais, free Tesla adapters for our cars so that we can charge at Tesla stations. So anyone who has a Hyundai can take advantage of that for free. So.
Good to know. Okay. Do you think maybe you could ask, I know when we switched over that Clean Air Alliance or whatever they call it, we had representative come and talk and tell us, do you think maybe you could see if we could get them to come and, it's been a while now, somebody from there, and talk about maybe some of the new things? I mean, you do a great job of sharing that, but maybe they could come and do a short presentation.
Absolutely.
I don't know who's in charge over there now, but yeah, maybe that'd be, I think, something that would be helpful, not only for us, but also the public to hear as well.
I don't think they do short, Tom.
They don't do short. Well, okay. They'll be on somebody else's watch anyway, so. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Mayor Pro Tem, you?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo what Councilmember Mendez said, that I want to thank Mr. City Manager and his staff during the rainstorm. I just want to say, noontime before the rain even started, and he actually emailed all of us and say, I'm on top of it, and we're going, checking out everything. So things don't just happen. While things may seem peace and quiet, but it's because of a lot of prep work. So just wanted to say thank you for that. And looking forward to the State of City
Thank
address.
you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. It's I think it's going to be a little different this year, but I think a good different. So, okay, so before we get all the patting on the back, during the rainstorms, there were people in boats going down Freer. I don't know if you saw that.
That's Freer Canal we're
Freer
calling
Canal,
it now, right?
Yeah, it's
not Freer Road, sorry.
But unfortunately, and this was long before you were here, when they redid that road, they did it, unfortunately, incorrectly. And the north side of Freer, I don't care how much it rains, there's a foot of water there. It doesn't last very long, it does drain, but there is a lot of water there. But, hopefully we haven't had, I don't think we've had problems, at least as far as accidents.
We have areas just because of the topography and there's always an engineering solution sometimes, but the engineering solution could be extremely expensive. And even with that, you will still have challenges. And Freer is one of those streets.
Yeah, it's okay.
Flaherty is another one of those streets we have, and a few others that are really challenged. And we've tried, and we've, just to let you know, we've made an aggressive effort in particular in a couple streets where we've actually done some, we've used like a roto-rooter, for lack of a better term, into either the connector to the trunk lines that we're responsible for, or looked for other solutions. So, and our new storm drains that I think 30-ish or so that are city-owned, have a manner in which it's easier to clean out as well. So that's one of the other things that we're doing. We just got those installed in the last few weeks. So it's challenging, but there are some areas just because of topography and just the nature of how the road is laid out, it makes it extremely challenging. So and that's why the team, and we're Freer, we call them our hot spots in town, and we are aware where those hot spots are. And Mr. Armenta and the team, and now Mr. Amana, our new public safety supervisor, do a really good job of just trying to make sure we do what we can.
No, I understand. I just giving you a hard time. We'll survive. Okay. Okay, thank you, Pro Tem. Couple of things, couple events I was able to attend these past couple of weeks. We do have 3 new Eagle Scouts in town. Stephen Shee, Daniel Su, and Aiden Tiet. And if that last name sounds familiar, that happens to be the son of local optometrist Paulina Hahn and former school board member Ken Tiet. And so this was this past Sunday, great event, packed house at the Women's Club. Jerry was there. So you know it's an important event if Jerry's there, right? So it was a well-attended event, and congratulations to those 3 young men. I did attend the Good News Los Angeles Church Lantern Festival. That's our new church. Pastor Kelty is familiar with that, I'm sure, because it's they took over.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, I won't mention that then. But
Ignorance on the grounds of stupidity.
okay, no problem. But they had it's sort of their Lunar New Year. So, and you were going to attend, but you know you had to work. It was a nice event. Got to meet some nice individuals. It was kind of a homecoming for me, though, because years ago, I think it was the first time I was the mayor, the IYF, which is part of that church, the International Youth Foundation, had asked me to host some youth roundtables here, and we did them here in the council chambers. And then I was asked to speak at one of their big world conventions down in Irvine. And the young lady, Annie Park, who was the connection, we hadn't talked for a long time, and it was exciting to see her and her husband and her grown children now attending the event. So it was a nice event, and you know, like it seems that they're doing very well there, and so I was thanking them for inviting me as well. We do have a new pastor in town. Remember, Pastor Nelson from First Lutheran Church. It's First Methodist. First Methodist. Yeah, I get the first mixed up, but First Methodist Church. Just recently took over, a nice individual, nice man, and he's going to come and do one of our invocations in hopefully the near future. So good things going on. Temple City National Little League is opening, believe it or not, Friday night. And I know Councilmember Chen will be there, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll be there, and Temple City American is actually opening up March 1st, I believe, on a Saturday morning. So if anybody's available, Temple City National Friday night, I think, what, 5, 6? 5 o'clock, I think. I think it's 5.
5:30.
5:30, okay. And then Temple City American, March 1st at 10 o'clock. So I can't believe baseball season already, but here we go. Let's see, what else? There's something else I wanted to mention. Oh, so every year I usually go to Clemenson's school to do their read-along. And I know City Manager Cook has done it before, where we read to the different grades. Unfortunately, this year, I'm not going to be here on that date, which is March 6th. So the librarian there asked me to extend a welcome to anyone else on the council who would wishes to read to one of their classes. It's March 6th. I believe the reading starts at 8:30 and is over by 9 o'clock. So if you are interested, let me know, and I'll be glad to send you the information. But she's looking for people to help with that reading program. Good people at Clemenson, and you know, they do a good job there. So if anybody's interested, just let me know and I'll pass that on. All right, last thing, and I know it's getting late. This is actually my last meeting as mayor. I'm going to not be, unfortunately, at the next meeting. And so this will be my last meeting of the year. And I know we will get the opportunity at the second meeting in March to give our speeches and do the reorganization. But I just wanted tonight to thank all of you up here for your support this past year. You know, we've had a pretty good year, I think, overall. You know, with the, of course, expected disaster, but we got through it. And, you know, it means a lot. And, you know, when you're mayor, as all of you know, there is some extra work to be done. But everybody, all of you have been there to support me and we've worked well together. And I can't remember the last time we've ever had a vote that didn't go pretty much 5-0. We've been pretty good about that, and I think that's because we all get along well, and we all look at the issues, and we all understand what we're doing. And so I want to thank all of you again, and of course I'll have the opportunity to do that in March, but as my last formal meeting, I just wanted to express those. And of course, to everybody out there as well, thank you, and of course have another couple opportunities. As been mentioned, the State of the City address, which is not only my address to the city, but it's really a joint effort of everybody, our staff, our city manager, all of you up here. You know, I'm the spokesperson, but it's because of what we have done as a unit that will be highlighted, and I look forward to doing that next week, and of course to the reorganization next month, and look forward to the coming year and to support whoever becomes mayor, and the rest of us, I know, will still keep doing what we're doing, and for all the betterment of Temple City. So thank you again for that. I appreciate it. Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. You have to stop before I start crying. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's truly been an honor. It's hard to believe. 2009. We've grown old up here. Or I haven't, and you haven't.
We're all gray now.
But you know, we've been together now. I mean, Ed's the newbie, but he really don't think of him as a newbie anymore. But you know, we've been together a long time, and that goes not only for the council but staff as well. And you know, that's the stability of the whole setup. The people you see up here are doing a great job, and will continue doing it. And you know, it does make a difference. I know that all of us participate in regional boards and things, and we see what's going on in other cities, and it's not always pleasant. It really isn't. And we think back and we say how fortunate we are to be part of this. Okay, and so. You know, it's a good thing to be part of, and hopefully, I know it will continue. So, all right. Item 15, additional public comments. Anybody out there wish to drag this meeting on any longer? No. Good. Okay. So, not hearing anyone, we are adjourned for this evening. Thank you, and have a good evening.